funny scenes and fun moments. Below is a list of Rogue One goofs. Find out the hidden errors, mistakes and funny moments in the movie.
Anachronisms.
When the Death Star is shooting, even with reduced firepower, the main beam is coming from the center of the super laser dish, just as it is operated in Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. However, the depicted Death Star in Return of the Jedi is the second version, while the one we see in Rogue One and Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope is the first version and fires in a slightly different way. When the Death Star is destroying Alderaan in A New Hope, the main beam is formed at the intersection of the supporting beams coming from the rim of the super laser dish, and no beam is fired from the center of the dish itself. Character error. As the rebels are setting charges on Scarif, they twist them to, presumably, arm them. The second or third charge never gets twisted.
Continuity.
A giant Jedi statue, lying in the sand, is at first lying on its left side, like in trailer number 2, but zooming out, it is lying on its right side. When landing the transport, the crew is preparing for landing as they deploy landing gear. You even hear them say that the landing gear is locked in position. Minutes later, when they actually are landing, you see the landing gear coming out of the transport, not being deployed earlier. In the opening sequence, the Imperial shuttle is flying to Galen's farm to take him back to the Empire, and can be seen flying over Jyn's head as she runs back to the farm to warn her parents. The shuttle knows where Galen lives and presumably flies in a straight line, yet arrives well after Jyn arrives, leaving Jyn plenty of time to talk to her father and be hidden in the cave by her mother. When Jyn Erso is talking to Saw Gerrera, the position of his breathing mask changes. It mostly hangs to one side of his chest, but in one close-up shot it is in a different position without the character having moved it. It returns to the previous position in the wide shot. In Jedha, when Jyn Erso shoots an Imperial droid, it hits it near the shoulder, but when it falls down, the bullet hole is on the chest. At the first appearance of Orson Krennic, the wind is blowing very strong and his cape is moving very strong too. But during the close-up scenes the cape almost doesn't move. In different shots it's moving strong again. When Krennic is talking with Galen in the opening scene, we see a young Jyn sneak up to within a few meters of where they are, but in the opening wide-angle shot, we see that the belt of green vegetation is actually quite narrow and is surrounded by relatively flat and open terrain. When the shuttle lands on Scarif, all of the palm trees surrounding the landing pad are coconut palms. Later, an exterior shot of the shuttle shows date palms with pruned leaf bases. These palms are easily available and transplanted as mature trees, as the trees in this shot were. Crew or equipment visible. In several of the trailers, there is a scene where two X-wing pilots are walking past two large hangars. In the background is a modern piece of construction equipment clearly bearing the logo of JCB, a UK-based manufacturer. It's possible this will be cleaned up in post-production. During Darth Vader's first scene on Mustafar, light from the window behind him is visible through the lower part of his ventilator, and it is also possible to see part of Spencer Wilding's head. As the camera pans into the control center of the databank station for the first time, we see officers huddling around a couple of consoles. These consoles appear to be rugged and firmly planted to the deck. However, one of the furthermost console was visibility nudged out of position as the camera away, towards Krennic. Factual errors. When the shuttle's thrusters ignite, a conscious Jyn is pushed backwards to the edge of the platform, but an unconscious Galen, who is nearer to the shuttle than Jyn, stays at the same spot and in the same position as before the ignition. A rifle scope would not produce stereoscopic image, as seen in the 3D version of the movie, as two lenses are needed for that to work, not one. Even if it did, that would be pointless, as only one eye is always used to look through the scope. When the Imperial officers in the main tower see the explosions on the landing pads, the sound reaches them simultaneously. The distant landing pads are about 1 kilometer or so from the main tower, so there should have been a brief delay of a few seconds before the sound reaches them. Incorrectly regarded as goofs. When the actual Death Star schematic is shown on a screen, it has an error. The superlaser dish is shown on the equatorial trench. It is actually above this trench, not on it. This may be a deliberate error done as a throwback to Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope, which has the same apparent goof. At Jeddah more than once in the wide shots the Death Star is upside down as shown by the superlaser dish being on the bottom half of the station when it should be on the top half. The Death Star was rotated upside down for the attack. There's nothing inherently wrong with doing this in space since there is no true up or down in zero gravity. Plot holes. When the rebels land on Scarif, their ship gets checked by a guy, a black stormtrooper, and two normal stormtroopers. Then they're ambushed and knocked out, but Jin, Cassian, and -2 come out. There's people watching the ship. How did they not notice the complete change in who came in and out? I guess you could argue Cassian and the guy looked similar enough no one paid close attention, but there was no Imperial droid entering the ship, and -2 stormtroopers seems way too obvious. Even if no one was paying attention, Cassian looked like he hadn't shaved or bathed for 3-4 days. Have you ever seen a scruffy Imperial officer or soldier? Revealing mistakes. During the space battle over Scarif, in one shot of Gold Leader's Y-wing cockpit, the edge of the Death Star's equatorial trench can be seen through the back window of the cockpit behind him. This is reused footage from the Rebel attack on the Death Star from Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope. When Jin, Cassian and the other volunteers depart the Rebel headquarters for Scarif in the stolen Imperial ship, as the ship departs into the atmosphere you can see on the top right corner of the screen the faint image or shadow of the same ship departing, a slight smidgen of CGI error.
Spoilers.
The goof items below may give away important plot points. Continuity. When Galen Erso is lying on the ground, his angled leg changes. First his left leg is angled, then his right and finally his left leg again. Plot holes. In the end there is a massive battle with the Empire for the Death Star plans. The Tantive IV, a ship long owned by Senator Bail Organa, oft shown in the prequel trilogy, is seen disconnecting from the docking bay fleeing with their plans. The first Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope movie ostensibly taking it from there. What doesn't make sense is Darth Vader's dialogue with Leia in the first film, which makes it seem like a few random spies intercepted plans from a pre-existing file transfer. It also conflicts because Vader saw this ship leave in Rogue One, yet in A New Hope Leia's cover story is that they are on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan. They wouldn't have attempted this lie. Vader would obviously know, having caught them red-handed. The Empire uses the city of Jeddah as a test run of the Death Star to prove it is an operational system and then later blows up the entire planet. In Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope, Darth Vader, Admiral Tarkin and others are quoted as saying the Death Star is not yet fully operational, which would have been after they destroyed Jeddah. The Rogue One goofs.